Joe, you texted me late afternoon yesterday and you were like, is there a glitch with our Calendly or are we having a ton of reschedules that are just all over my inbox for interviews right now? And I was like, rest assured, I just had to reschedule a few things. It was just a couple of interviews, but there were a lot of emails that came associated with it. But it's summer and there are reschedules happening across the board. There's distractions left and right. There's kids out of school. There's grandkids out of school. There's a pool in your yard. There's all or anybody's yard. There are distractions. Summer seems to be a harder time for solopreneurs to buckle down and do that standard, not 9 to 5, but that standard schedule that they're used to the rest of the year. So I figured today would be a good day to really address how to stay focused when there are distractions everywhere, especially in the summer months.
And I'm glad you asked me because I'm a world authority on this topic.
You are.
I am not.
So what are some pointers you have for people that are distracted easily, I guess in general, but specifically for this time of year?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was kidding a minute ago, but really, I think you just have to accept the fact that, as we say here in where I used to live in Greater Boston, it's summertime. And in summertime, you go outside because why stay inside when it's going to be lousy weather from November through really April? And so, I mean, just one of the things is to accept the fact that you really want to take advantage of this nice weather. It's good for you. I just read an article. I'm a geek. I read Scientific American, and there was an article about how sun is basically a very healthy disease preventer. So go out and get that sun and, accept a little bit of acceptance of a little less productivity, a little more outside time might be a wise choice in the long run.
Provided you can afford to do that. But it might also, because if that means stepping away from client work, some people are like, but I need to get those to-dos done to pay the bills. I think it's also just kind of reframing your schedule. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and she was like, what time have you been getting up? And I was like, 5 o'clock. And I just start, and I at 4:30, because I do a little like morning me time. And then 5 o'clock is when I've started working recently. And she was like, oh, that makes sense because your entire team is on the East Coast. And I was like, well, it makes sense because it's sunny out. So my brain's like, oh, we can start getting stuff done. And then I have drop-offs for summer camp. And then I have all these things during the day, but my to-dos don't go away. So for me, I'm fortunate enough that I am an early bird and the 4:30, 5 o'clock doesn't bother me at all. I actually prefer it and I like that time of day. But I think you also just need to realize, like, embrace the season, but also embrace the time that you don't have to do that 9 to 5. As a solopreneur, it's okay if you work 5 to 8 and then maybe even at night again to kind of accommodate the shifts. So I don't know if you've noticed my chats coming in a little earlier than normal this summer.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious though. Everybody wants to know, what time do you go to bed when you get up at 4:30?
Oh, 8.
That's that makes a ton of sense. I mean, another thing is, I don't know about everybody. I can't speak globally, but I think about 93.7% of people out there could probably buy a lot of time by, not doom scrolling, and just, taking some of that time that you're on the device and saying, I'm going to go outside, listen to the birds instead of, whatever. But it's just really, there's just a lot of ways you can find time in a day that you're probably not thinking about. And it's worth exploring that to buy that time to be able to appreciate, except for you people in Southern California that get it year round. To appreciate the weather when it's really nice.
And if you want to kick in the pants to see where the time is, a few months back, I think it was when we were getting close to one of our book deadlines, I was feeling kind of overwhelmed. There was just, I was a little bit stressed out. And I was like, I just wanted to make sure I hit this deadline. And my husband grabbed my phone and showed me the usage of where I'm spending all my time on my phone. And let's just say there were quite a few hours that I could get back from mindless scrolling that I wasn't really realizing. Those 2 minutes here and there just really add up.
It adds up, yeah, and it's it's not just you. I mean, it's almost everybody. But anyway, so that's a big one to me. And We say this all the time, but time blocking, getting that stuff time blocked so that you just get her done. I mean, that just makes a big difference. And if you're not doing it, you might find yourself being a lot more productive. And it just also takes those distractions and kinds of, if you got to, if they're true, just things that are coming at you, you say, well, I can't do that until 3:30 or whatever, because I've got this thing on my calendar. Always saying that I don't believe in time blocking too far in the future unless it's crucial. But, for the most part, time blocking can really help.
And with that, don't overwhelm your to-do list. Come up with 3 things you have to get done that day that you really have to get done, whether it's client work, something to move the needle for your business, whatever. And then everything else is just icing on the cake. But it's easy to get distracted and then get so down on yourself for not accomplishing everything that you want to. So if you have just those few things, you'll still feel good. The momentum will go. We'll keep going. And so just don't try to attempt 10 big ticket items in one day. It's a recipe for burnout, especially in these summer months. So
Absolutely. No, I'm just totally agreeing with you. Here's what I used to do, right? I would keep to-do lists, and I'd have a to-do list, and I would have 10 things I wanted to get done that day, and I only get 5 done. So then I take those 5, bring them over the next day, but I also have new things come on. So now I probably have 12 things, and the next thing, my to-do list is 37 items long, and I just want to jump off a bridge. And that's a really bad strategy. And like you said, just pick, maybe it's 3 things, maybe it's 5 things, maybe it's 1 thing because it's something big, but just be real and don't schedule more than 75% of your work hours, because stuff is going to come along that you're not going to plan on. And then you're going to get behind, and then you're going to feel terrible.
Mhm. And plan on the distractions. I mean, you're going to have them, especially in the summer. So just plan for that time. But I also want to just say, I think a lot of people look for resets the first of the year, and that's when they do a lot of their planning and figuring out what they want to automate, delegate, use AI for, and all of that. But I feel like summer's also a really good time. You need to be thinking, if I know I'm going to be distracted, if I know I'm going on family vacations, but I need to get all this stuff done, maybe it's a good time to think about what you can automate, delegate, and use AI for to free up some of that time, because a lot of solopreneurs are still doing everything manually. So maybe take a step back and think what can be happening behind the scenes while you're off getting distracted at the pool or wherever you are getting distracted this summer. But you have to remember, flying solo in business doesn't mean you're alone. Use these resources, use these tools, and that'll help free up a lot of time.
Get some help, get a VA or whatever. Maybe it's a good excuse to get a VA. I just know that, I have been able to, in recent years, kind of just say, like this Friday, I'm leaving work early. We're going over to a place called The Deck. There's live music. We're just going to have dinner. It's outside. And, years ago, I would have been like, I can't go. I can't leave early. And it's like, if you can build the business up to a point where you can walk away sometimes and kind of enjoy life, it makes a huge difference. And I just really think that people need to think that way, to not feel that, there's no way they can walk away from stuff. Honestly, someday I've made this joke before, but I'm going to write a book called The Power of Procrastination, because a lot of times half the stuff that you're doing, if you don't get to it, it doesn't matter. And that's another thing that I really recommend, is take a good hard look at all the stuff that you're doing and say, what's going to drive the needle? What's important? Because a lot of times the things that we're doing, they're urgent, but they're not important. And if they're not important, then either delegate them or don't even do them. Because if you're like me and you've overbooked yourself a lot, you've wind up not doing some things, and it never becomes a problem. And so that's just, to me, one of the things that I think people need to think about is just, some stuff in that to-do list probably can go in the trash bucket.
Joe, I'm so excited you said that, because I think that is a perfect place to stop and tease next week's Soundbite episode, where we're going to be talking about how to prioritize tasks when everything is urgent. And I'm going to be picking your brain about the Eisenhower matrix, and you kind of just dabbled in that a little bit just now.
I did. I mentioned it indirectly. So
yes. So stay tuned for next week's episode, or next week's Soundbite episode, excuse me. And thank you so much for tuning in. We would love that 5-star review. Share this episode with a friend, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. And we will see you next week on The Aspiring Solopreneur.